fundamentally, there are really only two business models. It's service or product at the most basic level. But like you said, then there is, are we a creator? Right? But we can do that service or product, or are we selling some, somebody else's? Okay, service. There's lots of places that we can, if you think of it like a beach ball, someone else used this for a different analogy. If you're close enough to the beach ball, as far as the beach ball is only yellow, right? But someone else is like, no, this thing's white. And someone's like, no, it's not. It's pink, because everyone's looking at their little, stripe of it. Right. And so part of it is to understand what slice matters for the piece that you're making a decision on.
Are you feeling overwhelmed, stuck, or uncertain about how to grow your business without sacrificing what really matters most? Welcome to The Business You Really Want, the show for women ready to build a sustainable, fully aligned business. Aligned with what, you ask? You. Your values, your life. Seriously, it is possible. I'm Tonya Kubo, and along with business advisor extraordinaire Gwen Bortner, we're here to show you how. We are back in the What We Didn't Know series, where Gwen and I talk about the issues that, boy, if we knew them earlier, life would be a lot different today. But we're glad we learned the lessons, and we're here to share them with you. And today, in the second installment of What We Didn't Know, is my big lesson. So last episode was Gwen's big lesson, which is hiring isn't the fix you think it is. So if you haven't heard that, definitely go back there. But this one is your business model is driving more than you think. And boy, if I understood business models before I hung a shingle, life would be a lot easier. Because Gwen, here's the issue. Let's just lay it on the table. One of the easiest traps to fall into as a business owner is trying to fix problems at the tactical level, right? Your marketing isn't working. What do? Go from social media to Substack, or change your messaging, right? Or I know what you should do. You should sink $10,000 into branding, because everybody cares about branding. Your operations feel messy. You know what? Instead of Asana, maybe you should go to ClickUp. Or you know what? Maybe you should go to High Level. That's what you should do, right? Add a new system. That always fixes problems. And guess what? If you can't tell by the tone of my voice and the sarcasm dripping from my tongue, it doesn't really work that way. It doesn't work that way, because the problems are usually downstream, and what's actually driving them is your business model, or honestly, it's a misalignment between your business model and the tactics that you're trying. So today we are talking about one of those things that we didn't know. And for me, it was that your business model affects everything from your marketing to your operations, whether you realize it or not. And so Gwen, I am going to jump in here and just say that I want to say I'm embarrassed to say this, but at the same time, Gwen, like, how else would I have known, right? Nobody talks about this stuff.
Yeah.
Is that it was, let's see, I first hung my shingle in 2007, and it wasn't until 2021 that I recognized that at the end of the day, everything you do needs to connect directly to your business model, or it's going to fail no matter how well you do it. Is this something, because you have an operations background, like before you hung a shingle? I mean, like, you hung a shingle when you were like, what, 20? But, so maybe you didn't know this at some point, but I feel like you've always known this, but maybe that's because you've always been independent. When did you figure this out?
I knew it instinctively. So it's back to, I don't know when I figured it out, or I don't know when I would have been able to call it out specifically. Because, like I said, it was more of an instinctual thing, right? That your business model really does drive a whole lot of decisions. And we often get stuck in a business model that someone else is doing and is successful with that we won't be successful with, not because we can't be successful, but it goes against so much of what I'm going to call our natural tendencies, right? So, for example, I have created courses in the past, but courses go against my natural tendency, even though I am a natural instructor. And that seems like that's totally in conflict with one another, right? I'm really good at instructing. I love instructing, but I don't teach courses very often because one of my natural tendencies is about context matters. Right? And so that would be an example where if I built this whole business about courses and everything I delivered was a course and that's what it went, that would actually go against my natural tendency of context matters. Right? And so sometimes that's where the business model is missing. Now, another example, and this is one that I didn't get until you and I were working together, and you didn't get right away either, is my natural way of working is so highly relational that the typical let's get a lot of people on our email list program doesn't work for me, even when you do all of the right things.
Yeah. So before we go too far down here, because there's some threads I want to pull. I think we're going to need to back up about 2 steps. Step 1 is going to be, why don't business owners see how much their business model affects everything they do? And step 2 is actually to discuss what are the most common business models.
Well, so number 1, why do you not see it, is because we just think the way that we have to deliver services is the way we have to deliver services.
Okay.
We assume whatever we've seen other people do is the way that it has to be done.
Yes. So I would say yes to that. And I would also say to clarify it, at least from my perspective. It's that unless you came into business, I'm going to say the traditional way, right? You got out of business school, like you went to business school, first of all. So you studied business models. You know what the word business model means. And you studied models, and then you went to work for a company. You would know what model that company aligned with, right? If you were in the operations, the director role, you'd have more of an idea of your business model. Those of us who came in as coaches, consultants, or freelancers especially, right, doing a service, we're just, I'm a photographer. Right. I'm a photographer. I'm a graphic designer. I'm a this, I'm a that. Nobody says, oh, photographers are service-based business owners, right? Nobody says, oh, if you work one-to-one versus one-to-many, that tracks to a specific business model. Like you just mentioned course creators, right? Like info products is a business model, and your business model is really, how do you make your money? So Gwen, what I will say is, nobody ever used the term business model to me, right? When you become a freelancer, nobody makes you create a business plan. Like those just aren't required. So the good side and the bad side of being an independent contractor of any sort or owning your own business is there's a very low barrier to entry. You can say I'm a consultant and nobody has a reason to question you. You say you're a coach, nobody has a reason to question you. The downside is you don't always know what those words mean in the bigger picture. So Gwen, because you know way more of this than I ever will, walk us through the most common business models in your perspective.
So, you can go really, really high level and say there's basically 2 categories of business models. There are service-based business models and there are product-based business models. Okay. That would be the highest level. And of course, this is the whole thing of we can keep dropping down and down and down and down and down and down. And there are probably an infinite number of business models, right? But so we start there. There's service and product based. When we think about product, typical product based business models are retail, selling to an end consumer. There's wholesale, selling to a person who's going to sell bigger quantities at a reduced cost so that someone else can sell them to an end consumer, right? There's manufacturing. I'm taking some bunch of components and I'm going to create something different and then sell that. Usually manufacturing also has a wholesale component associated with it. But wholesale could be buying something that's already made and selling it to somebody else. That is often called distribution, where someone else makes it, I take it and then distribute it to a different set of people. So often, especially historically, where it was a much, much more complicated thing and we didn't have such easy access via internet and phones and all the rest of it, a lot of distribution models were about getting product, for instance, from Europe into the United States. Right? They weren't actually making any changes to it, but now the big change was I know how to get it from Ireland to the United States through customs, through all of those things. And now I can get it out to, clients. So those would be, and there's other product-based models, but those would be some of the easy standard product-based business models. And most of us are familiar with those to some degree or another because we all buy stuff, right? Yeah. And so we've seen it. On the service-based side, at that same kind of very, very high level, back to each of these, I could probably go, 5 or 6 layers deep
right.
of how different they are. We've got what I'm going to call the coach world, and I'm going to separate it from the consultant world back to, I use these terms differently. Not everyone does. Some of them use it interchangeably. Coaching for me is about you as an individual person. Okay. And so it's someone helping you work through your personal stuff, right? Consulting is usually solving a problem. So you're coming in usually to a business and I'm going to solve a problem with skills, knowledge, technology, products, all sorts of things to solve a particular problem for you, that is within a certain kind of framework. Right? There's advisory, which is what I do, which is I am helping you think through things. I'm not necessarily helping you think through your stuff. I might be, but I'm often helping you think through the issues and the problems that you have around your business, your marketing, your, whatever, right? So there's more of an advisory capacity. These are all service-based businesses. There is what I would call large team consulting based businesses that are a service-based business. These are the McKinseys of the world, the big names that you hear, and back to they're bringing in people, resources, knowledge to solve a very specific kind of problem. There is the freelancer who has a specific set of skills that they come in. They usually are functioning much like a consultant, but usually are also including a little advisory in that process. But they have what I'm going to call a tangible deliverable, right? So this is the graphic designer that is, creating your PowerPoint slides. This is the web designer. This is the person creating social media for you. If they've got a specific spot, this is often a freelancer that's coming in and doing specific things. They may call themselves other things, but functionally that's like a freelance business model. Let's see, what else are there for service-based business models? There's also the service-based models that are training, right? So you can be providing training, coming into an environment and providing training. And then you have what I call the kind of mix. I think of them as service models. Some people would call them product models. Things like course creators. So they've actually got a product, but it's a product based on service and knowledge, not necessarily a physical, tangible product. A membership is another one that I feel like is a cross sort of thing. You're selling a particular activity, result, and usually set of data, but it's around service and knowledge, as opposed to, like a drink, a drink can, there are folks that do retreat models. That's their business model, is they host retreats. They bring people together, focus on a problem, and then they go away again. So the service models can be really, really broad. But in general, what that is I'm bringing knowledge to the table that is specialized knowledge in some way or some shape or form, and I'm delivering it to another person or group of people.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for the thorough explanation, because I've never heard anybody break it down into that many levels before. I was given I've heard two much more simplified versions of business models. I used to work for somebody who was like, there's really only 3 business models out there. But in general, how it's been explained to me, right? So definitely product-based, service-based, but it comes down to between product-based and service-based, right? Is it a physical product or is it an informational product, right? Can you hold the product, or does the product increase your knowledge, increase your capacity? And are you selling something that you deliver, or are you selling something that somebody else delivers, right? So in the case of physical product, are you selling something that you have manufactured and created, which obviously would have the highest profit margin, or are you selling something else that somebody else has done, right? Which would have a lower profit margin, but then you don't have the requirement of having the intellectual property and all of that other stuff. And it's really the same way with service, right? So when we think of the people whose entire business is built around selling Go High Level, for instance, right? They are still technically they are a product-based business, and where they are making their money is in the profit between what they pay to license High Level and what they're charging somebody else to license High Level from them. Now, that's a overly simplified version of what business models can be. The other way, how I think of it, is it all comes down to, are you a creator business, or are you a service-based business? And of course, with creators, right, same thing. We've got physical products and we've got virtual products.
Yep.
We have got on the service-based side, I am delivering the service, or I am overseeing people delivering the service. And it can be on that service-based side, I work one-to-one or I work one-to-many. And so that now you understand how the agency model would work and all of that, right? So that's kind of where we're at. And the reason I bring that piece up is because it was understanding it that way that actually made me understand why certain operational structures and certain marketing structures work for one business and don't work for the other.
Well, and I think, one of the things that you're bringing up is, if you look at businesses, there are multiple ways to slice it, right? And when you really get down to what is the business model, it's the version of every one of those slices.
Yeah.
Right? Because you're right. Fundamentally, there are really only 2 business models. It's service or product. At the most basic level. But like you said, then there is, are we a creator? Right? But we can do that service or product, or are we selling somebody else's? Okay, service for, there's lots of places that we can, if you think of it like a beach ball. Someone else used this for a different analogy. If you're close enough to the beach ball, as far as the beach ball is only yellow, right? But someone else is like, no, this thing's white. And someone's like, no, it's not. It's pink, because everyone's looking at their little, stripe of it, right? And so part of it is to understand what slice matters for the piece that you're making a decision on. It may be the same slice is appropriate for your technology, regardless, but it's a different slice for your marketing plan. right? It's the same slice because of the business size you are, or it's a different slice because of how long you've been in business.
Yeah. So now I'm going to talk about how this has affected me and kind of my aha with it. And then Gwen, I would love for you, I'd kind of like to turn it over to you. You're welcome to pick apart what I say, because you don't know anything about what I'm going to say necessarily. Also, welcome to kind of offer your own insight, and maybe like you can tell how that happened, or maybe you can't. But because I come from a marketing perspective, it showed up for me on the marketing side. Now,
it almost always shows up where we have the most knowledge.
Right. But, now I also see where it's affected operations for my business, and even to some degree service delivery, but lesser. So where do I even want to go here? Okay. So first of all, there's like 3 things I want to tell you, and I want to tell you them all at the same time.
Pick one.
Let's start with, yes, I am going to pick one. So marketing, I think, is so important because the tactics we use for marketing oftentimes, almost always, need to relate to how many people we actually need to be visible to in order to achieve our goals. And so the problem is most of the people who are marketing experts, and put that in air quotes, however you like, are talking about marketing for one specific type of model, and that model is not always yours. So let me everybody who listens to the show or has listened to the show a few times knows that I spent a lot of years working in book marketing. So going to writers' conferences, doing all these things, right? And so in book marketing, and especially with traditional publishing, right? Publishers want you to have big lists, big social media followings, right? Like 5,000 email subscribers is a small list for an author. Publishers want you to have 25,000 social media followers on any given platform. But bigger is better, and there is no such thing as big enough. If you went to a publisher and said, I have 100,000 people on my email list, they'd be like, well, that's a good start. So between now and when your book comes out, we want to see you grow 10%. Seriously. Doesn't matter what you tell them, it's always a good start. And the reason for this is because across the board, all things being equal, a publisher can count on an author's audience for about 2.5% of book sales. So 2.5% of 100,000 email subscribers sounds pretty good. Now, they also know that on social media, you've got like not even 0.5% of your social media followers will convert to buyers. So that's why they need this bigger is better. So I come from book marketing, and so I'm telling this to all my authors. Well, I'm thinking I have to have a big list too, right? My authors are being told we all have to have a big list. But no, I don't. Right? Because even in book marketing, 100 clients, that's a 6-figure salary right there, right? I don't need 100,000 people to find 100 authors to work with me in that regard. Even now doing community management, like 100 clients in a year would be huge for me. So I no longer chase the bigger is better list, because a big list isn't necessarily going to get me more clients. Now, I do want to publish a book at some point, and so I do know that I have to grow my list, right? But those are 2 different goals, and it took me forever. So I was spending so many years trying to figure out this lead magnet and that lead magnet and tracking my email subscribers without ever tracking, and I'm going to say 15 years, tracking my following and my audience without ever tracking what percentage of that audience was converting to clients. And so that is where I made a lot of marketing mistakes, simply because I was chasing tactics that had nothing to do with my model. So that's the marketing side. I want you to address that, and then we'll go to the operations side.
Well, and it's the most popular marketing model.
Right, because it's all taught by people who are selling to creators.
Right, they're selling to creators, and they're selling to folks that need that big market, right? Because I don't know if it was you or somewhere else that I was reading this, but it's the idea of you bought the course. How many more times are you going to buy that course? Well, 0, because I bought the course. I don't need to buy it again, right? I might tell somebody that it was an amazing course, but I'm not going to purchase it again. Now, I might buy another course when you create something new because I thought you were amazing at teaching the first course, but I'm not going to pay to take that course again. And so part of it is, are you selling things that are one-time purchases, or are they ongoing consumable? Right? And big lists are needed for things that are more like one-time purchases, right?
Yeah.
If you're selling toilet paper, just, something that we all dealt with the whole COVID thing, right? People want that and they consume it, right?
And, even if you have an 80% markup on your toilet paper as a product isn't costly enough for you to survive and pay your bills on only 100 sales a day.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Got to sell thousands.
You got to sell thousands. But people are coming back
time and time again.
Time and time again, as opposed to how often do you buy, a house, since I'm in the middle of that process, right? Real estate agents have a different need. They need a really big list within their area that they service, because most people aren't buying a new house or selling a house once or twice a year. And so it's back to that business model. This is a different slice. Is your piece that you're buying or selling, as depending on which side of the equation you're on, is it something that people are going to buy again and again and again and again, so you don't have to sell, market to them as often, because it's like, I love Charmin toilet paper. That's the one I'm using. I don't even know if we use Charmin. I just but they do really good marketing, so I remember them.
The bear is really cute.
The bear is super cute, right? And so, it's like, so I always buy that. That's what I buy. That's what I buy. That's what I buy. Now, I am also really loyal to my real estate agent when I find a real estate agent, but that doesn't mean I'm going to still buy a house every year, because that's just not in the cards. So it's a different type of what do we need. Now, also with that is, how often do you need to remind them that you exist, right? Real estate agents also have a different hit of, I've got to stay in front of mind, because I don't know when you're going to need to buy another house. Right. And because the timeline is so long, I always use the phrase, I've slept since then. Well, I've slept a lot since then. Right. And so being top of mind over time for a really long time is going to be important, where I don't actually need to be advertised about toilet paper. Like, it stays on top of my mind that I need, that we're going to use toilet paper at the house, and so it's a different kind of marketing need also, right?
Right. So you're bringing up a few things that I want to make sure that our listener is hearing. So one is, right, like marketing tactics, and it's very true for marketing. How often you need to reach out to individuals, and how many individuals you need to reach out to at any given time depends a lot on your sales cycle, how long it takes someone from finding out about you to trusting you enough to give you money, right? So in the case of a house, that can be a long time. And your satisfaction with this one house transaction can make or break what I think about you for a long time. Right. So I don't really want to hear from my real estate agent every single week, because I'm not thinking about selling my house every single week. But hearing from my real estate agent a couple times a year is kind of nice because then I get reminded, right, of the experience and whatever you have. Now for toilet paper, to your point, Gwen, I don't need to be reminded about toilet paper very often, right? Because I either I need it, unless I want to go to the whole family cloth thing and we're only so crunchy in this house. So, but I do need to be reminded of Charmin if Charmin wants to make sure that I buy Charmin and not just whatever's cheapest when I go to the store.
Right.
So Charmin does need to get in front of me frequently. Now, lucky for Charmin, they're not the only person trying to sell me toilet paper, right? Like the grocery stores that I go to are also trying to sell me. So Charmin doesn't need to hit me quite so often. But that's really important. So think about it, houses I think are a great example in terms of you don't buy a house very often, maybe once a decade, depends on who you are. Some people buy houses every 3 years. But also there are people out there, like if you're selling storage units or you're selling fire trucks, right? Like it's probably 5 years in between that. But back to, if you're selling fire trucks, you don't need every fire department on your list. You only need the fire departments within a certain vicinity of you that you could reliably get a fire truck to.
Right.
So that is why that business model piece is so important with the marketing, right? Is like, it affects everything from how often you reach them, how often you do touch points, how often you expect them to be doing business with you, and how many overall people you need to ensure that you have the right number of clients at any given time so that you have revenue stability.
Right.
So there's that piece. There is also the piece of, I think what you also alluded to, it's price point.
Right.
Right? If you're selling a house, you might only need to sell 4 houses a year to make your revenue goals.
Right.
And so, and if you sell 4 houses by March, you could decide I take the rest of the year off, or I keep doing what I'm doing because I don't know what next year is going to look like.
Right. It may take me 9 months to sell the next house.
Right. But then if you're selling something very low ticket, right, like toilet paper, or in the instance of most of our listeners, right, low ticket offers are the big thing in online business, have been for about the last 5 years. There are people talking about how they have 7-figure businesses selling $7 a month membership. And for a long time, I had a lot of people coming to me wanting me to help them with low ticket offers. And I was like, yeah, I'm more than happy to help you do that. Because they're like, yeah, that's how I'm going to make 6 figures. But they would have 100 email subscribers and 250 social media followers. And so I'm like, well, who are we selling these $7 offers to? Because even if every single email subscriber buys it, which they won't, that's just giving you $700 a month.
Right. I was going to say, and let's just pretend like it was crazy. And they did.
Yeah. It's still only $700 a month. Does that pay your bills? They're like, no. It's like, okay, well then we can create that offer, but we've got to grow your list exponentially in order to make a livelihood at that.
Well, and this is the place where I always talk about context matters, because people see, like you said, the statement of, I am making $1 million a year selling $7 offers. And they're like, I can sell a $7 offer.
Yep.
Right. But part of the context is, and I have 10 million people on my list. But they don't say that part, because that part's scary and not cool and not easy to do. It just sounds really fun when you say, I'm making $1 million selling a $7 offer. Not that it took me 10 years to get 10 million people on my list to be able to do that.
Yep. Right. So those are some examples with marketing where your business model makes a big difference, right? Like I spent years trying to figure out why I was a failure at lead magnets, only to realize that the way that I deliver business, like my ideal clients aren't downloading a bunch of freebies.
Right.
My ideal client has a problem. They want it solved. And what they want to do is they just want to maybe listen to me on a podcast, maybe read a couple of articles, but then they just want to hop on a call with me and be like, look, Tonya, here are my cards on the table. Can you or can't you help me? And how much is it going to cost?
Right.
Right. It's the same thing with you, right? As a service-based business owner. Now, what I'd like to do, Gwen, is let's shift to operations. So for me, how I've seen this play out, right, is everybody wants to sell me a whole bunch of automated systems. They want me to be on, I should be on Active Campaign because, it can do this evergreen newsletter. And if people do open this email, they get that email. And then if they don't open that email, they'll get this email. But if they do open that email, they go down and get these other 7 emails and da-da-da-da-da, which again, if I have a hands-off info product business, or let's just say I'm selling lipstick, right? I just want people to buy the red lipstick. That works fine. They bought the red lipstick. They didn't buy the red lipstick. Okay, if they didn't buy the red lipstick, let's show them an eyeshadow, or let's show them a brown lipstick, or whatever. But as a service-based business owner, I don't need complex automations.
Right.
Okay? I just need a good weekly email newsletter at most that helps people to appreciate either why they're on my list or what I can do for them. I need to be having one-on-one conversations as much as possible. And one-on-one conversations, I can just do manually versus trying to orchestrate this elaborate automation system that has its own cost of overhead to make it happen. Also, as a service-based provider, I don't really need to be on every social media channel. I don't need to be doing all the things all the time. I don't need 100,000 people on TikTok watching me dance and lip sync. I just need to find one channel that has enough of my ideal people and a mechanism for me building a strong enough relationship with them that I can present them with my offers and sell them. So operationally speaking, my business can have extremely low overhead. My business can run with just me. Like theoretically, I could have a $500,000 business just with me and maybe a VA. Mm-hmm. Theoretically, I could do that and maybe even have a full-time job outside of this, depending on how I chose to deliver my services. But a product-based business, an e-commerce-based business specifically, they need a lot of automation. They need cart software, right? They need like Shopify or something similar to Shopify so people can put like 22 things in the cart.
Right. Process the credit card,
send them a reminder if they abandon their cart.
Right.
Offer them a discount to come back, retarget them on Facebook and Google and all these other places to, hey, you forgot your card, right?
Well, and, would you like fries with that? Right. Most of our clients, we've all seen it on Amazon. Most of our clients who bought this also purchased this. Right?
Yeah, I can't really go to my people and be like, okay, most of our clients who bought a community roadmap also have enjoyed hiring me as their CMO for the low price of an extra $2,000 a month. Sound good? Just click here.
Yeah, not the way it works.
Okay, what have you seen operationally that depends on business model?
Everything. Everything depends on business model. So,
what I mean, though, is the mistakes.
Yeah. So the mistakes are not understanding that your cash flow needs to be handled differently depending on your business model.
Say more.
So it's, cash flow is a great example because we always think cash flow is only about sales, but it's not about sales. It's partially about sales, but it's when does the money have to leave your hand to do whatever else it has to do, whether it's paying your subcontractors, buying your product, doing your other things. How long from the time that you deliver services do you get paid? And, there's all sorts of pieces in there. So cash flow is an example that people don't think about, but depends on your business model. Mm-hmm. And part of your business model is how do you invoice, bill, pay, set up contracts for your services, mm-hmm. right? It was one of the things that I did very, very early on and that people were still very shocked about at the time was I charge month to month for my consulting services. I have not had packages mm-hmm. At all. And people were like, but you've got costs. And it's like, I have minimal costs associated with delivering my services. Most of my cost is me. And so if they don't pay me next month, I don't have a whole lot of costs that I'm having to cover mm-hmm. next month because someone said I'm no longer paying. What I'm not paying is mm-hmm. myself because I'm right. the one doing the service, right? And so that allows me potentially causes a different cash flow problem because I don't necessarily know what my cash flow is going to be month to month to month.
Right.
Right. But it also was a choice I could make because of my business model. Right. That wouldn't necessarily work for others. And so, choices about how we bill, how we invoice, how we package, how we deliver, all of those things, how we hire, who we hire. There is almost nothing that doesn't actually have impact based on your business model. And the problem is we either do what we've done before, particularly when we work for somebody else, that we've seen somebody else do, that we think that's the way it needs to be done, or we're following the generic best practices that are not best practices. They're just the most common practices that we're hearing and seeing on social media and our networking groups and any place else that we're getting advice. So almost everything ends up having an impact. It's the classic thing of the first thing you need to do is hire a VA. Well, maybe. And absolutely maybe not. And it really depends on your business model.
Right.
As to whether or not that's actually your best investment. It may not be. And it absolutely positively might be. And back to, depending on, does your business model have lots of ongoing repetitive tasks that need a personal human touch that can't be automated? Maybe having a VA that can, just go, this is the list, this is the list, chunk, this is the list, really is a good investment. But maybe not. But that comes back down to business model. And so the problem is that we make tactical business decisions based on what we either know or what everyone else is doing without actually thinking about what is our business model need.
Right. And so why do you think, and then we're going to close up, because we could talk about this for hours. Obviously, we feel very, very passionate about this topic. But why do you think people don't realize this until they're deep in it? Is it really just because nobody talks about it?
It's because nobody talks about it. And most people don't know more than one or two business models. And so a lot of times the two or three business models that they may know are very much aligned. Like, where I was talking about, they're product-based business models. They're service-based business models. As I started, slicing it different way, it's like, yeah, these are really close, but it's the left slice versus the right slice. And so the changes aren't that big. And so it's like, yeah, this is the way that we do that. But for whatever reason, they're in this very, very different world, and they're trying to apply this business model that doesn't work. Early on, when I started this business back, this specific business back in 2012 or whatever it was, I've lost track. I suggested a different way for a gal to bill. And she was like, you can't do that. It's not ever done. And this was an industry I had familiarity with. And it was like, yeah, I understand that it's not typically done that way, but you're also delivering a slightly different service than what most everybody else is. Hers was web development, but not web development. And the not web development piece was she was actually helping them get their clients and building these memberships that were huge and managing the memberships. And it's like, you could get a piece of the action, basically kind of a commission or a royalty-based piece. And she was like, you can't do that. And it's like, yes, you can. You've got access to all the knowledge, all of the data, all of the information. You could bill them every month to say, you started out with 10 members today, and this month you now have 100. So I'm taking my piece of the 90. A 10% or 5% or, whatever cut, because next month you've got 300 clients, and it's because of what I'm doing is why you have that. Right. But it was that I've only done web development. Web development is always a project. We get paid for the project. That's it. We didn't know there were enough other models out there.
Right.
To even consider it. And that's often where I provide value, because I'm looking and saying, this feels like this business model. Because like I said, her business very much was a web development business model.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, it feels like a web development business model, but you're missing like 2 or 3 key elements that makes your model different. It's mostly a web development business model, but not quite.
Yeah. So final question. If someone is listening right now and thinking, like all of my marketing things that I've been trying never work, or gosh, my overhead seems higher than it should be for what we're doing, or any of those sorts of questions that may indicate there's a disconnect between their model and the tactics that they're applying. Do you think there's like a question they could ask themselves that might tell them whether that's the case or not?
Nope, I actually don't. Because most of the time, we're caught within our own knowledge and assumptions.
Yeah. Well, the whole reason I asked you that question, Gwen, honestly, is because I was thinking in my head as we're talking, like, how could I have known this earlier? And I couldn't have. Like, somebody else had to explain this to me.
Yeah. This is the place where we have on our website on Everyday Effectiveness a place that you can just get a clarity call. You can go to everydayeffectiveness.com/clarity, and that's what you need. You need outside perspective to help you understand that maybe the thing that you're looking at is not the thing that you need. We usually promote our one question email, but this isn't necessarily a question that you're going to be able to ask yourself and figure out on your own. You need outside perspective to be able to see it. And it needs to be with someone who has enough broad perspective. This is the place where sometimes it'd be like, oh, but I have this really great mentor in my industry. It's like, yeah, the problem is they're seeing all the same things that you are. They're not asking questions that they would never dream of asking.
That is so true. Okay. Well, Gwen, like you wrapped us up better than I could have. So everydayeffectiveness.com/clarity. Cause I agree with you. Like I was like, well, maybe Gwen's going to drop some pearls of wisdom that I have not yet gleaned from her. But yeah, it's like, I'm a smart person. There is no way I would have known this without somebody else bringing my attention to it. So this is the second of our What We Didn't Know series. Next up, we are going to talk about why smart business owners or veteran business owners still fall for bad advice. And that is a lesson that Gwen didn't know she didn't know. So join us next time. Thanks for tuning in to The Business You Really Want with Gwen Bortner. I'm Tonya Kubo, reminding you that sustainable success is within reach. Make sure to subscribe to the show and visit thebusinessyoureallyWant.com for more resources. Until next time, keep dreaming big and acting with intention.